when you're talking about podcast wars, or they call them pod wars. Angela Rye versus Joe Budden, the Native Land podcast versus the Joe Budden podcast. The only way realistically you probably didn't see this coming is if you kind of only stay tuned in the hip hop space, where realistically most people feel like Joe Budden is the dominant figure in the hip hop podcast space. But realistically, even Joe bringing Marc Lamont Hill on there, that play wasn't just for like right now at the moment, because he kind of brought him in at the tail end towards when the presidency race was kind of coming towards the end a little bit. So he brought him in a little too late for him to get the real benefits of bringing Marc Lamont Hill in. But let's be honest, he brought him in for the bigger play because he's seen the Andrew Schultz, the Charlemagne's, the Joe Rogans, what's the funny dude with the mullet, I can't remember his name, the Theo Vaughns. He's seen a lot of those other guys who realistically aren't political figures, but two people who to me have mastered how to talk to the regular working class person, the person, the music person, Joe Rogan and Charlemagne the God. And both of them kind of realistically benefit. And I'm sure deep down inside, if somebody put them on a lie detector test, I'm sure Joe Budden, if he could realistically do it all on his own and didn't need Marc Lamont Hill or 5 or 6 other people to talk, he would probably do it. And would Angela Rye probably prefer to have a voice just as loud as the Joe Buttons or the Stephen A's or even the Charlemagne's? And for people who are not familiar, and Joe even kind of mentioned this in his rant against her, he kind of know her from, and even, I'm not gonna lie, that's what I know. I know Angela Rye, I know Marc Lamont Hill, I know 90% of these popular Black talking heads in the political space from going on the Breakfast Club. So Charlemagne introduced them. Angela Rye and Charlemagne even had a podcast that I don't even necessarily know if they got. So they may have got the 10 episodes spread it out. They wasn't consecutive with this. But again, we're talking about, this is numbers, because when these political figures are going to do their promo runs or starting to run ads through shows, I'm sure Joe want that money, because you know for a fact these people are paying for these advertisements to get on some of these shows. So I'm sure if you see how much money did Andrew Schultz, again, Joe Rogan, Charlemagne, the Brilliant Idiots, when you see all these people getting all these different type of people to come through the show, realistically, and let's be clear, Joe is so great at what he do. His audience probably don't even remember when Rory and Maul was on there. They never wanted to interview people, never wanted to. Think about how far Joe, and this is how great he really is as a podcaster. He's manipulated his audience so well. I'm talking about, I go back from when he had, whatever the girl name was that was on there with him and Rory for a couple episodes. He went from that to never wanting guests to literally now he make y'all pay to see him interview people. Just think about how crazy that is and how great he is as a podcaster. But let's get back on to detail on some things where I think, as somebody who listened to both, I listen to Angela Rye and them, and let's be clear, I think even her back and or Stephen A's back and forth with Bakari Sellers, and Bakari Sellers is new to the Native Land podcast. They just recently brought him on like the last episode or two. And he had a back and forth with Stephen A. And of course, the Jasmine Crockett thing and them and everybody riding for Jasmine Crockett, I'm cool. I stand firm on that one. But Stephen A. kind of had a good point. I think a lot of these political people get frustrated because they feel like they're more educated and they kind of doing the heavy lifting and really trying to educate their people and get their people knowledgeable of what's going on in the real world. Their voices isn't as important into the everyday working class person like a Joe Budden or like a Stephen A. Smith. And that's probably what gets them frustrated, because you feel like, I went to school, I've done all the work to get myself super educated, and people are more intrigued to Stephen A.'s horrible political takes or Joe Budden, who financially is stable enough to pay your real good friend. Marc Lamont Hill kept saying him and Angela Rye are real good friends. But like Joe said, dog, you got fired from your job in 2018. Ain't nobody come and scoop you until I came and scooped you a year ago. They could have got you some bread. They didn't get you no bread. So again, with all that being said, I'm sure it'll be a little bit envious, because that's why some of the vitriol that she have come out, it sounds like it's a little bit jealous. Like, why do people even pay them attention? Why do people listen to them? Because every working class person doesn't have the appetite or the brain capacity to sit here and want to talk politics, because most people who are great at talking politics, like a Angela Rye, like a Bakari Sellers, or like a Andrew Gillum or Tiffany, or even Joy Reid, I think somebody who do it kind of fire and has really been getting his bag since he got fired is Don Lemon. But I think some of these people don't do great jobs at it. And that is why, to me, the bar, if you just want to keep it race wars, is Joe Rogan on the white side and Charlemagne on the black side. Because both of them know how to make it digestible for somebody like me. If I gotta go to work every day, I don't want it to sound like I gotta go to school. Especially you talking about you trying to really get to the working class person. You're not trying to get to the person who's like the upper echelon 1% or close to being a 1%. You want the hard working class person, the everyday person who realistically, that's why sports radio was made. For the dude that's in the truck all day or the person driving the metro bus. And these people, those voices cut in from the Joe Rogans and from the Charlemagne's. And the thing, and I guess why Joe Budden probably gets a little frustrated, because he realistically, I think Joe is smart enough to understand his own weakness, and his weakness may be politics. So, hey, I'm going to bring in somebody who's way more educational and flow in conversation way faster. And I think that is a good thing that Marc does. I don't think Marc can do it great on his own, because what Marc got his, whatever that little late night show he do on YouTube and Twitter, I'm cool on that. I really can't, I like him. I love him on Joe Budden, but him on his own, I'm cool. Like, he stutter a little too much with me. He talks slow. You probably by this point, you see how fast I talk. I'm not a fan of slow talkers. But even just sometimes when he even getting his conversational points put out, it just don't, it go on deaf ears. So realistically, a lot of them are just beefing over what somebody else may do a little bit better than them. And I'm sure realistically, it don't matter how much money somebody or successful somebody like Joe has, what will kind of upset him a little bit if somebody tries to turn their nose up on him because, hey, I'm more educated and I'm this well invested. Because I mean, as an adult, realistically, I'm sure if you somebody, you 35 and older, and you listening to the Joe Budden podcast, and you especially you've been listening to it on the regular, I'm sure at some point in time, you probably want a little bit more out of the conversation because you're getting older. The older you grow, and that's how you'll end up stumbling into spaces like the Native Land podcast or the Joy Reads or whoever else, because you get older. Your takes ain't going to be the same. Like, think about it, just real quick for anybody who really listened to Joe Budden. What's the last great Joe Budden hip hop tape that you got? Because think about, that's what you came there for. Think about what his first viral moment was Drake Views. And how many years that was ago. And think about still realistically in recent time, his next biggest rants is always versus Drake. But at the same time, I would ask you as an adult, is that really what your appetite calls for? Like, I'm sure, cool, you can cut it on as background noise, but you came for hip hop takes. To be honest, Joe ain't gave you a great hip hop take in God knows how long. Because even if you were a Drake fan from Views, I'm sure you probably even have outgrown Drake a little bit. So to go to your favorite hip hop person, he's still kind of hungering on the Drake thing. It almost becomes like the Skip Bayless or the Stephen A. LeBron thing, where it comes like, it's cool, but after a while, I'm kind of tired. And then you get your appetites, and that's how you get your Gills Arenas. And that's how you get whatever the pivot, or you get Cam's 4th and 1. You start to get, or you get Shannon Sharp, you get Nightcap, you start to get other people. I think one thing, and that's why Joe brings so many other people on, because he knows he don't want to lose his audience, so he kind of want to keep them like on their toes and keep them excited. But if I'm being honest, yeah, of course, a lot of the shots, the easiest person to take shots at may be QueeenzFlip. But to me, even personally, if you're gonna bring Mona, you don't need QueeenzFlip. Like, what that, I'm sure in Joe's mind, QueeenzFlip was younger. He was going off of numbers, and that's the sad thing. Because even when Stephen A. was having his back and forth with them, it's always a numbers thing. Because if you're just going off of numbers, then of course it makes sense. Oh, QueeenzFlip got his own audience. Let me bring him in there. But for a clip dude or a skit dude, don't fit well with a podcast with like grown adults who really have an adult conversation. Like, that's not no shade to QueeenzFlip, but he just don't, like, when we talking about podcasts, and this is not a skit. I'm not here really trying to kiki and laugh. I'm trying to kind of be like educated and entertained at the same time, and he do a lot of just like, bro, I'm cool. Like, if I'm just being like, if I can get Mona, because she can throw some jokes in there, I'm gonna laugh. But you can see the couple episodes she been on, she gonna get to the business when you're talking about some topics that she really locked in on. He just don't do that. Like, what, you can't tell me what's a QueeenzFlip topic that you feel like he locked in and he knock it home every day. I can kind of say the same thing about Ice. I'm sure Joe brought Ice in there for that purpose of like, oh, he gonna be my younger dude who'll give me some Southern hip hop takes. I'll ask you this question. When was the last time Ice gave you a good South hip hop take? Think about how, if you on TikTok and you watching this right now, think about how big 6'7" is. I don't pay for no Patreon because I watch too many other things, as you can see now. When did they give you the 6'7"? That's right there in Philly. You got 2 Philly podcasts on it, one of the biggest little hip hop terms. It was on what's one of them Good Morning America shows. And you telling me you got 2 Philly people on the podcast and I ain't heard a 6'7" episode yet? That shows you realistically why you shouldn't be blind to the back and forth between a political space or educational space, because realistically they all kind of battling for views, and they're not battling for views just for today, whatever was today, October 19th or whatever date it is, 2025. They realistically thinking about 2 or 3 years now, when the election season come right back in and people trying to do their runs and they paying for ads. That's the space that they realistically battling for, and that is the audience that they realistically both are fighting for. So just don't think of it short term right now, where it seems like jabs. And I do think, again, that's something to me. I'll keep saying it. The point of reference will be, the bar for all of them will be Joe Rogan and Charlemagne. Somebody who can be able to dance in multiple audiences. And neither one of them ain't the smartest dudes in the world, but both of them know how to ask questions for the working class man. And that's why both of them have been on top of their game for so long. And if you think I'm tripping, just go on the Breakfast Club and look at how many different people they interview and how big a lot of those interviews are. From like, they literally every week got like 2 or 3 different politicians from all over the country come and sit down and do an interview. I'm gonna tell you somebody else, if you looking into podcasts, who kind of do this at a great level too. Van Lathan. Van Lathan on How I Learned, and him and Rachel do a great job at balancing pop culture and political point of views. And they really can go, and Van Lathan can go in a deep dive of all type of those things. And I think realistically, I think Joe, the older he gets, he probably wants the good, healthy balance of that for his show as well. Because if you've been doing this for 10 years, that means the people who've been listening to you are 10 years older. So even if you started at 20 listening to him, you're 30 now. If you started listening to him when you was 30, you're 40. There's no way your appetite for entertainment is still the same as it was 10 years ago. It's impossible. And I think let's be clear, there is some people, I see them on Twitter all the time, where they may be in their brain. I see people on Twitter who really enjoy QueeenzFlip. But that, to be, I'm sure, no disrespect to Flip, that's not the audience that Joe really wants. He's cool that he can find people that's like, all right, bro, you that slow. But he know the bigger play ain't for those people. It's the people that appreciate Marc Lamont Hill. It's the people who appreciate Ish. That, to those 3, like adult, and of course, again, like I said, Mona, now, that's the adult conversations that people want to enjoy. Give me some entertainment, but also I want to be able to hear adult stuff. What is your regular adult stuff? And I do think sometimes, even before I get out of here, I think that is something that may cripple Joe a little bit, because your success comes with so much money, and you paying I'm sure he even get frustrated when he say, hey, how you guys weekend go? You pay them so well, a lot of them feel like, I'm just gonna stay in the house, or they feel like they too big of celebrities to be outside with the regular people. Perfect example, could tie that back into Rory and Maul. I'm sure for most people, if you listen to them, your highlight of each episode is Damaris. You know why? Because Damaris is still a regular person. Most people fell in love with podcasting because it's like, I want to just listen to other people's opinion, this regular people, where they from or wherever they was, regular stuff. When it becomes too, like, for Joe, it's too, like, you too rich, and your normal audience won't tap out, and then that's when those spaces of those different things come along. So again, like I said, pay attention. It ain't just about that little back and forth between QueeenzFlip and Marc Lamont Hill. That bigger play is who gonna get those political people to come and sit through their shows, who gonna get that bag from the Democrats and the Republicans when it's time to run ads for the presidential candidates, or the midterms. It's gonna come up even before that. Again, like I said, I'm cool with the debate. I love it. I love the fact that I can tell that both of them trying to realistically get that same